Well, good morning, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. Just so you know, we are recording this presentation and this webinar, and it'll be available on the governance training section of our website later this week. So good morning. My name is Sarah Beck. I am the Associate General Counsel and Operational Accountability Manager here at the State Charter Schools Commission. Also on the webinar, we have Kristen Easterbrook, who is our Charter Development Manager, who assists in this compliance process for governance training. As you all know, per Georgia law, all members of state charter school governing boards must seek annual governance training. This morning, we're going to discuss the governance training requirements and how to enter in your governing board's training information into the SCSC portal. If you have a question during the presentation, you can try to enter it into the chat box. Previously, the chat box has not been working. So if it's not working, please hold your question to the end and you'll have to unmute yourself to ask the question. And as always, feel free to email us with any questions as they come up. So today we're going to talk about FY20 governance training requirements, how to use the SCSC portal, governance training FAQs, answer any questions y'all have, and then I've linked to some resources at the end of the presentation to help you. So the first thing I want to cover is governance training requirements for operational schools. These are schools who previously had students last year. The training requirements differ between operational schools and schools in their planning year. For currently operational state charter schools, your governing board members must seek a total of 12 hours of training per fiscal year. Governing board members can receive this training through the State Charter Schools Commission at our 2 annual governance training opportunities or through an alternate training provider. The list of approved training providers is on our website as well as DOE's. I've also linked to it at the end of this presentation and I will send it out at the end after the webinar. Additionally, due to COVID-19, the training deadline to receive training through an alternate training provider has been extended to September 30th. Importantly, if you have governing board members who attended who joined a state charter school governing board after the second SCSC governance training opportunity, which occurred on February 5th of this year, the governing board member is encouraged but not required to attend SCSC governance training. Something that is new this year is we have slightly changed the hour requirements for schools who are seeking alternate governance training, but I promise you the changes that we have made are only to the benefit of your school's governing board. The information on this slide is only needed if your governing board member did not attend SCSC governance training in full, and you have or did not attend the training in full and have partial or no hours from SCSC governance training and thus have to seek alternate training. You should have received an email from me last week with information about which governing board members attended SCSC training in full or partially and the breakdown of hours they received based on this criteria. There was also a chart included in that email which crosswalks the SCSC governance training hours to these requirements. Again, only if you did not attend SCSC governance training in full do you need to worry about this. If you did attend SCSC governance training in full, then the criteria does not apply to you. Under the old alternate training hours criteria, you had to receive a 3-hour minimum of training in each of the 4 topic areas, which are fiscal management and finance, best practices in charter school governance, academic accountability of state charter schools, and legal requirements of state charter schools. Now you must still receive a minimum of 3 hours of financial training as required by state law, but then you only have to receive 1 hour minimum in each of the other 3 topic areas. But you still must get to a full 12 hours. But this does allow for more specialization for training within the governing board. For example, the governing board treasurer may wish to seek 9 hours of financial training and only 1 hour in each of the other categories, so best practices of charter school governance, academic accountability, and legal requirements. And this would now be allowable where previously it would not have been. We want to encourage school governing board members to seek training in areas that make the most sense for them based on their role within the governing board while still maintaining legal requirements for governance training. Schools who are in their planning year must receive a total of 12 hours of training from the SCSC. This means that your entire governing board must have attended SCSC governance training. This is communicated to new schools on multiple occasions. Again, board members who join after February 5th are encouraged to receive alternate training, but are not required to do so. So now I want to take us into the SCSC portal. I have a series of screenshots, so you will have these for your reference. And after we go through these series of slides, I will do a live demo for you about how to upload your governance training certifications. Step one is to sign in. If you do not know your login information, please let me know as soon as possible. Then step two is you're going to click on the start button on the 2020 governance training certification application. If you do not see this application, please let me know as soon as possible so I can add it to your login. On the next slide, you're going to, on step three, you're going to click initial governance form 2019-2020. From there, you're going to select your school name from the drop-down list, and then you're going to enter in how many governing board members the school have as of February 5th, 2020. Again, February 5th is that second governance training deadline that we have, and for compliance purposes, that's really what we're looking for. After you enter in the number of governing board members that you had as of that date, the Fluid Review will automatically populate the number of fields that you need to fill in the names of those governing board members that you had as of February 5th, 2020. From there, you are going to then select the number of governing board members that completed SCSC governance training in full. This means they received all 12 hours of SCSC training from our governance training. Then you're going to enter in the names of the board members who completed SCSC training in full. Then you're going to enter in the number of governing board members that partially completed SCSC governance training. This means they received at least 1 hour of our training, but not all full 12 hours of training. Then you're going to enter in the names of the governing board members who partially completed our training. Then finally, you are going to enter in the number of governing board members that received only alternate training and did not complete any SCSC training. Then you're going to enter in the names of these board members who completed only alternate training. And then very important, you're going to click Mark as Complete. Once you click Mark as Complete, depending on the number of governing board members that completed partial and alternate training, in full, the forms for these individual board members will appear on the right-hand side. So for example, if I had 3 board members who completed partial alternate training, I would have 3 of these forms instead of just 1. So now for our governing board members who completed SCSC training in full, they will not have to complete any of these little forms that we're going to go over. And that's because we have all of their attendance data, so they don't need to fill out this information. However, if you have a board member who did do partial alternate training, you're first going to enter in this board member's name on the form, and then the number of SCSC offered training hours they received. So in this example, we have Brenda, and she received 11 hours of SCSC governance training. So that means she just had 1 hour left. And based on the criteria that we covered earlier for alternate training, she just needed 1 hour in best practices in charter school governance. So she entered in the course name, the number of training hours received, the date of the training, the provider name / institution, and then she uploaded a syllabus that is signed and dated by the provider. From there, you're going to get to From there, you're going to get to the certification form where you'll have to press agree, stating that this information that you provided is accurate and true. The board member will then sign, you'll date it, and then most importantly, again, you're going to click Mark as Complete. Now we're on the full alternate training form. This should look familiar. It looks a lot like the partial alternate training one. Again, this one will only appear for board members that did not complete any SCSC training. So when you're entering in this information, make sure that you are looking at the header. It's cut off here, but it says full alternate training report. Again, full alternate training form means this board member did not attend any SCSC training, meaning they have to get a full 12 hours in alternate training. So just as we did previously, we're going to enter in the board member name. Her name is Jane. Enter in the course description, training hours received, the date of training, provider name, and a syllabus that again is signed and dated by the provider that you're going to upload. You're going to again press agree, board member signature, date it, and then of course, mark it as complete. So after you have done all of that, so let's say I only have 3 board members. After I've completed all of their forms, there's one final step that you must complete in order for it to fully go through. You have to click submit. So once you see all these green check boxes and you are fully done, everything looks good, press the submit button and then you will be good to go. The deadline to complete this application is October 31st. So we still have a while to get there, but I encourage you to go ahead and get this done and get it off your plate. So right now we are going to do a walkthrough of the actual portal. Oops. All right. I believe you should be able to see my, let's just do it this way. Sorry, you guys, I have lost my Chrome browser. Let's start this again. There it is. Wonderful. Let's go to fluid review. Application. So once you sign in, like we showed previously, you're going to click the start button to start your governance training certification. From here, I'm going to again click the initial governance form. And then I'm just going to enter in all of my information. So I'm going to scroll down, say I'm ACE. Again, I have 3 board members. I'm going to list my board member names. How many board members fully completed SCSC training? Again, that was just Bob. So Bob completed full SCSC training. So I'm just going to select 1 for that one. Then the next, how many board members partially completed SCSC offered training? I just have 1, and that was Brenda. And then the last question, how many governing board members received only alternate training and did not complete any SCSC offered training? I just had 1, and that was Jane. So as you can see right now on my to-do list, my task over here, I just have 1 as of right now. It's just this initial governance form. However, after I click mark as complete, this form is going to generate a series of other forms for me to fill out for Brenda, and for Jane. So I'm going to go to partial alternate training form 1 for my first board member. So I'm going to put in Brenda. And I'm going to say she completed 11 hours of SCSC offer training. She got really close, but didn't finish, so she still has 1 hour left. And then for course name and description, I'm going to enter in all of this information. And then after, something that is really important that we actually just learned today, I had a bit of a freak out. The upload button will only appear once you have entered in course name information and information here. Once you enter in that information, that triggers the system that you are going to have to upload a document. So I'm going to come here down to best practices course syllabus 1. I'm going to upload the file. So this is Brenda. There is her information. All of this looks good. I'm going to click next. As you'll notice this is a 2-page form. On the first page is best practices in charter school governance and legal requirements. Once you go to the next page, you will see academic accountability and financial compliance. She did not complete any hours in those because she got those through our governance training. So then I'm going to click next. And then here I have the certification form, agree, sign it, date it, and then mark as complete. All right, and then from here, this is a summary of the information I have provided. If I go back and I realize that I made a mistake and Brenda didn't actually get hours and best practices in charter school governance, she actually got it in legal requirements, then I'm going to click the 3 little dots up here and then hit edit. And then I can go back to the previous page and change this information and change it from best practices to legal requirements. But for us, this is all good. So I'm going to go back through. And then if you do edit it, you do have to remark it as complete to make sure it saves. Then I'm going to go to the full alternate training report for my last board member, Jane. So Jane needs to get 12 hours total. And she needs to get hours in all 4 categories. So I'm just going to go through here and let me upload. So for best practices, she got 1 hour. I'm going to enter in this information. And as you notice, I didn't fill out this other information. You always need to go back and make sure this is all filled out. The system is very touchy and there are a lot of controls in place to make sure that you are filling out all information or else you may get an error message. All right, then for legal requirements, she got 1 hour. Upload her syllabus. Then, as we talked about earlier, you can allow a lot of different kinds of specialization within your board. So Brenda has decided to get more hours in academics and finance, which is totally up to her. So here for academics, she has gotten 4 hours. That is interesting. Oh. So in order to do this, you will have to do multiple lines to get your full 4 hours through. The system only limits you to do 3 hours per course. But 20. But you just do it as many times as possible to get that full course load that you need. Academics. And then for finance, she received 6 hours. So I'm going to do 3 hours here and then another 3 hours here. And then upload her syllabus. Then click next. And then I'm going to have to do the certification form again. Today's date. Then mark as complete. So as you can see, I have completed all of my tasks over here. I would encourage you to, of course, look through your training forms before you submit them. If everything looks good and everything is correct, you're then going to click submit. And then your application is completed and it is sent back to us. Now I'm going to pull back up our presentation. Give me 1 second. right. So before we go into questions, I just have a couple of FAQs that we get pretty frequently. The first is, do school leaders and any other school staff have governance training requirements? The answer to that question is no. Only your governing board members have governance training requirements. While we do encourage school leaders to attend governance training, they are not required to do so. So once you got your compliance report, for some schools, I did go ahead and take off the school staff. If I knew your name and knew you were a staff member, because you don't have governance training requirements. So we don't need to keep track of that data. The second one is, how do I know how many hours of governance training my board members received from SCSC training? You should have received an email from me last week explaining all this information. I'm still working with a few of you to get your hours completed. There were some discrepancies, but if you have any questions about that, please feel free to follow up with me and I would be happy to resend that information to you. The third one is, in light of COVID-19, can I receive all of my alternate training virtually? You can, if your course provider can ensure that you receive 12 contact hours of instruction. This means 12 hours of direct instruction, whether it's in person or virtually. But to satisfy the FY20 training requirements, pre-recorded webinars can be used for all 12 hours if the provider is able to verify that the individual viewed the webinar. So you will have to get with your training provider to see if there's a way for them to verify that you viewed the webinar. And then if they are able to do that, then you can receive your alternate training virtually. The last one is, what happens if a member of the governing board does not complete governance training? If a member of a governing board does not complete governance training either through the SCSC or through an alternate training provider, the school will lose all possible points on measure 3C of the operations section, which measures governance training compliance. The reason why is because this is required by state law and by your charter contract, and we want to make sure that you are following all of your obligations as necessary. My last slide, any questions from anyone? I know we went through that pretty quickly, but again, this is being recorded. So to the extent that you have follow-up questions, please feel free to ask us. Again, I don't think the chat box is working. So if you have a question, please feel free to unmute yourself and you can go ahead and ask it now. All right, I am not hearing any questions. So my last slide is a series of resources that'll be helpful for you guys. Again, I'm going to send this out once I get the webinar recording uploaded. We have our governance training website on our State Charter Schools Commission website, as well as a list of approved alternate training providers, some frequently asked questions regarding governance training, and information about alternate governance training. So if I do not have any additional questions.
Hey, Sarah,
yeah.
there is a question in the chat box from Devin Trowers. He said he joined the board in April, so I do not need training for 2020.
That is correct. Thank you for pointing that out to me. Yeah, you do not need training for 2020 because you joined the governing board after February 5th. However, we do encourage you to seek alternate training just to make sure that you are fully prepared and trained as a member of your governing board. But for compliance requirements, you do not have to attend. There was also, so you also said that you needed a login, so that's another important point. There's only one login per school, so likely your school leader or your governing board chair has that information. You generally, single board members are not entering in this information. It is usually either the school leader or the governing board chair because they have access to the portal. Again, we only give one portal login per school. The next question is, when will we hear about FY21 training, if that will be virtual? For that one, I'm going to kick it over to Kristen to provide some information about our future governance training opportunities.
Sure, thanks, Sarah. So we have released our FY21 training calendar for the upcoming school year. The big thing to note there is that we are planning for our November governance training to be virtual. So that calendar is on our website. Let me pull up the date here, the top of my head. But we'll have our normal November training that will be held virtually. We'll have our normal February training, which as of right now, we are planning to hold in person in Athens, obviously on current health guidance and things like that. And then we're also planning to add a third governance training opportunity in person in the Metro Atlanta area.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Any other questions? Well, if there are none, again, please, as
Do
always.
we have the dates for November? I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
For the November training, do we have the exact dates or not yet?
We do. Give me 1 second to pull it up.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. That is going to be November 9th and 10th.
Thanks so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Again, I will send out the recording as soon as possible after this. And if you have any questions as you're going through the Fluid Review portal, please feel free to reach out and ask. All right, thank you, everyone.